I've been in a bit of a pumpkin phase recently. I've built like so many pumpkin related builds, and today I kind of want to build a pumpkin patch, but like make it into a restaurant. After today, you are not getting another fall build from me until like next year, okay? This is the last one. Happy Thanksgiving. This time I really tried to build like a very autumnal restaurant in The Sims 4. The entire thing stemmed from me wanting to build a pumpkin patch in the game and then thinking, you know, I should probably put something else on this lot and not just pumpkins, especially to make it like actually functional, you know, to give your Sims an actual reason to come visit this lot. And so I turned it into a very fall themed restaurant. I was kind of trying to build like a little bit of a farmhouse, basically. I guess I was picturing that maybe this used to be like an old farmhouse, but now it's been converted into a restaurant. So it's very much your classic like white paneled farmhouse, big wraparound porch. But in this case, the porch is covered in tables and you can sit out there and eat. I also really cannot understate the number of pumpkins that I placed on this lot. I was like digging through debug and I was getting every pumpkin thing out that existed. There's like a pumpkin banner from Cottage Living. There's like pumpkin signs. There's literal pumpkins that are from Cottage Living that I like sized up and just put everywhere. Like there's pumpkins everywhere. You will see. It's a little bit much, but I feel like it's justified given what my intention was with this build. This was also kind of more a Halloween thing for me. Like I built this a month ago before Halloween, and I'm now officially uploading this video on Thanksgiving. So it's been like an entire month since Halloween. It's not like scary Halloween though. It's just like pumpkins. It's more autumnal, which still applies here for like at least a couple more days. I feel like after today is when everyone really goes full like winter time. Technically winter doesn't start until like mid-late December, but as far as I am concerned, winter is December 1st. I also live in Florida, so we don't really have seasons at all. Like it's all pretend. All of this is made up to me. Seasons don't change. The weather hasn't changed. It's still hot outside. I put on a sweater to be festive, but it's like not cold outside of this room. Anyway, you can kind of see where I'm going with this build. I'm like starting to put together like the main shape and the main building. It's really not actually very big inside. Like most of the stuff going on this lot is on the outside. I kind of just shoved the building like in the back left corner and then filled everything else with landscaping and plants and stuff. Also pumpkins, that was like kind of the goal. But the building itself doesn't really have much going on inside of it. There's like a really tiny dining room when you first walk in. There's a bathroom to the left and there's also a kitchen in the way back. I really wanted most of the seating to be outside on this build. I wanted to like sit in the tables by the pumpkin patch and stuff, but I also acknowledge that it's Brindleton Bay and the weather kind of sucks here, so it's probably going to be raining a lot, and so I made sure there was some indoor seating. There also is a second floor, but it's not furnished as part of the restaurant. It's more just like a storage room or like office for the employees. I keep having this dilemma when I build these restaurants because I know when I actually play in restaurants, when I like play as the owner of a restaurant, I might like to live there on the lot, and you can kind of do that. You can kind of pretend to live here, same as like a vet clinic and stuff. Obviously you don't actually live there, your sim won't get bills there or anything, but you could build like a second floor and put an apartment in it and then just not leave, and then you could live there. And so this building kind of has that. It's got space for like a second floor apartment that you could live in. I just didn't furnish it that way because I know that when I just come and visit restaurants, I find it kind of annoying when sims like autonomously go up into areas they shouldn't be. So if you just like downloaded this off the gallery and there was an apartment up there, you would have like Nancy Landgrab using the computer probably, and that's just kind of weird. Like that's just not the vibes. That's not the purpose of that. And you can always lock the doors and stuff. It's just annoying when you don't actually own the lot to go back in and fix it. So I decided to leave that part out. Oh my gosh. The other annoying thing was the terrain paint on this lot because I really struggled to figure out how I wanted it to look. I knew that I wanted to have it be like very nice, windy, large paths, but I kind of wanted it to be dirt paths. And so with this one, I spent a really long time like laying it all out and then deleting it and redoing it and laying it all out. And then I ended up trying to do a bunch of like layering of the terrain paint. I put like a light dirt down first and then had like a darker dirt kind of surrounding it on the edges. And in the end, I think it looks really realistic and really good. It just took me a while to get to that point. When it comes to terrain paint, I've got a couple tips for you. Number one, like I mentioned and kind of joked about, like doing it and then deleting it and redoing it honestly is sometimes the move. Usually with the terrain paint, I'm trying to get like a sort of windy path and it's really hard to do it, especially when you like do part of it and then like extend it. It looks kind of choppy and kind of weird. So most of the time when I do it, I'll like draw the path with a tiny little terrain paint brush, usually like a smaller circle. And then if it looks bad, I'll just like Control Z, undo, do it again. It looks bad, Control Z, do it again. And I just do it a few times until it finally looks like pretty okay. And then I go back in with a bigger brush and then kind of extend it a little bit. That's usually what I found works to make it look the nicest. But the terrain paint, the brushes are just, they're so choppy and so weird. Like it really is difficult to make it look natural and nice. So if it takes you a while and you have to keep redoing doing it, don't worry, it happens to everybody. Like, everybody struggles with terrain paint in this game. Looking at it top down like this, you can see like how choppy and weird it is. It really takes a while to get it right, especially on a lot like this where literally the entire thing is riding on the terrain paint. Like, I need that terrain paint to fill in the entire lot, basically. Also, very annoyingly, I live streamed this build and I didn't realize that I had stopped recording in the middle of the stream, and so I lost the footage of a lot of the outdoor landscaping of this one. So that was like a big jump from like no terrain paint to terrain paint being done and there being a lot of plants and pumpkins everywhere. If you want to go back and watch like that main stream, the main footage, I did live stream it first, so I've got like the full, 3 hours or whatever. I upload that kind of stuff onto my second channel called lilsimsie, and I will link that down below for you if you want to go back and watch it. And I'll show you at the end of this when I do the tour how I managed to do the terrain paint and like give you more of a close-up look. But right now we're starting to work on furnishing the patio. So you can see that I'm trying to fit in as many tables as possible onto like a relatively small space. It really isn't that big, but I've got tables there kind of lining the porch. I've got a few picnic tables out in the grass, and then there's a few more inside. So honestly, there's a lot of space here. Also, one thing that was kind of making me laugh as I was doing the landscaping, because I had this as like a functional restaurant, I had my sim come visit it. So it did generate employees in game, but obviously they had no like actual places to work because I hadn't placed any of them yet. So they were all kind of just standing around, and then there were like patrons spawning. So for a while there, Judith Ward was just standing in the middle of a pumpkin. I had this like giant pumpkin in the corner and Judy was just there, like in the pumpkin. It's always funny where sims decide to place themselves when you're in the middle of build mode, and I'm not really that worried about it because I know she'll like teleport out of it when I'm done. But it was funny to have her just stood there for like half an hour while I tried to like do this dirt over and over and over again. I also lined the dirt path kind of with these really pretty like fall lights that came with seasons. I always kind of forget about those lights from seasons. There's like these really nice lanterns that came with that pack, and they have a bunch of swatches for like all of the seasons. There's a couple fall ones. There's like one with just leaves and one that also has pumpkins and like jack-o'-lanterns. There's kind of some wintry ones, some Christmassy ones. There's like some floral ones that kind of work for spring. Seasons has a lot of really good like seasonal decor that you can use. Also, my apologies, that part was a little bit flashy because I actually planted real life pumpkins. I did delete a lot of the footage of this too on purpose because sped up, like the constant dialogue boxes popping up of me trying to plant the stuff was really hard to watch. But here I wanted to go in and have my sim plant actual pumpkins from Cottage Living, and then I used cheats to make them all grow, hence why the footage was kind of flashy because it just kept being so many pop-ups. But I tried to have like some variation in size and color and stuff. I couldn't pick the color, but I feel like it turned out okay just how they like randomly planted. And then I made some have 2 pumpkins, some had 4, some were just 1 giant pumpkin. And then with this, your sims can actually come here and like harvest these pumpkins because they're like actually really grown there in game. You can actually come visit this lot and like pick one and then bring it back home. And I kind of liked that about it. I thought about placing pumpkins myself, like just putting pumpkins kind of in like a row or something, like using these pumpkins but from debug and then custom placing them just because it might look a little bit more natural or something. But I do feel like the pumpkins being physically grown there makes it more fun gameplay wise because it gives like an extra purpose to the lot. There's a lot of like fun storytelling that you can do with things like this. If it was like fall in your Sims game and you wanted to like celebrate Halloween, you could have your Sims come visit this lot and like pick a pumpkin and bring it back home and leave it on the porch. I don't know. I get kind of excited about cute things like that. I also feel like it's kind of a good space for like photos if you wanted to come take some screenshots of your Sims and like the pumpkin patch. I don't know. You could get engaged here or something. It's just kind of cute. I just like that kind of stuff. Oh, you can also see that giant pumpkin banner that I kind of joked about. There really is a giant pumpkin banner. I always kind of forget that exists, but that one came with Cottage Living and it is literally perfect for this. There is not a better item that we could have chosen. That looks perfect here. Kind of around this area, I got to use a bunch of sort of cute things that seemed perfect for the space. I put Patchy down. I even put this like rusty old broken tractor in the front of the building. The tractor was kind of a controversial choice. A lot of my Twitch stream was very anti-tractor, and I understand it's a little bit weird. Like, why is there a tractor on this lot? They wouldn't need a tractor here. But my thought process is not that like they need a tractor. It's more just like maybe this is an old tractor that's like out of commission, it's not being used, and they brought it here like on purpose as a photo op, like almost like a prop for the building. I've been to like an old restaurant in California. It was kind of like an old diner, and they had like an old vintage kind of car parked out front. Even like the Grand Floridian Hotel has like old cars outside of the lobby at Disney World. It just kind of contributes to the vibe. They're just trying to make it seem like tractory here at Patchy's Pumpkin Patch, which by the way is what I named it. I named the entire place after Patchy. If you don't know what Patchy is, he came with seasons. He's that little scarecrow that I have in the back. Patchy is really actually kind of fun. If you have him placed on your lot, you can try and have your sim talk to him a bunch to befriend him. And then once you've befriended him, he'll start like coming to life during the day and helping with your gardening. So if you have like a really big patch of crops or whatever in your sim's yard and you get Patchy, he will help you weed them. He'll help you like water the plants. It is really useful if you've got like a lot of farming to do. It's also just kind of funny to have a scarecrow like walking around your neighborhood. Although I will warn you, Patchy is a little bit scary because he's a costume. Like the actual character when walking around has like basically twig arms, like he's got a giant pumpkin looking head. Basically his proportions are not very sim-like because he is a scarecrow. But if you go into cast with Patchy, you can like take the costume off because it is just a costume and there's just like a sim in there, just like a random sim underneath the costume, which can be a little bit jarring. So don't say I didn't warn you. Oh, the other kind of jarring thing is that on the inside of this building, I painted all of the walls orange, which was also kind of a controversial choice on my Twitch stream. People were not very happy with this. Not everyone, it's just some people. And you know when people are angry, they're very loud. So the negative opinions kind of stick out. But painting the walls orange was definitely a controversial choice. People did not like that I did that. Although I considered painting them with like spider webs and ghosts. So it's a good thing that I didn't because that would have been worse. But I did these like orange walls with some kind of cute like leaf pattern curtains. It was tough because I wanted the inside of this to be very wooden. I wanted to have some like old wood floors, old like reclaimed wood tables, but then I had used all this white on the outside. So we had these like white windows and white front doors. So it was kind of difficult to like combine those two things together. I think it ends up working in the end. I also used this really cool like series of portraits that came with Dine Out. There's like a huge gallery wall of photos and I put that on the wall as well because they're like black and white and they have some kind of cool frame colors. It felt like it fit really well in here. It was like perfect for this like old farmhouse build. I guess we were kind of trying to tell this story that it like used to be a house and is now a restaurant. So it's kind of fun to have like historic photos on the wall and like pretend that it's part of the story of the building. Obviously in reality it's not that. It's just a Sims build, but we can pretend. It really is like very small in there though. They also have kind of a giant bathroom considering the size of this building, but I kind of like that about it. It's a really nice big open space. It's accessible. It's a good bathroom size. I guess I sort of have like the tendency to, when I have space, try and add in like extra stalls and do stuff like that. But I feel like in a building like this, it's really not that big. And also not that many Sims will actually come here. You could totally get away with just one bathroom. There is really no need for two. There will never be two Sims peeing at once. It just won't happen. I guess for storytelling, it's kind of nice to have like, you know, public bathroom type of vibes, but this is a small family business. They don't need to have like a huge bathroom with stalls and stuff. And oh my goodness, the last thing that was kind of hard for me to do was the kitchen. I guess it's always kind of tough for me to do kitchens in buildings like this because number one, I don't really know like what it should look like how commercial of a kitchen are we trying to build here? Because I want it to be like family run, small business, small cottage, but also like, you know, it's a restaurant. They're gonna have like health inspections and stuff. It should try and meet those. But I want to use like pretty tile, but then we have these like weird metal things from the kitchen cabinet. So I always have a hard time trying to mesh those two vibes together. I do think in the end it looks okay and it's totally functional. We have like the big kitchen stove thing, the waiter station's in here, there's some storage, there's a sink. I always want to put in like a real stove and a real fridge. I want to have like a commercial sized fridge for this, but we just don't really have that kind of thing. And also in the actual restaurants, your Sims don't really have a need for a fridge, which is really weird. Like you think they would, but they don't. Like they don't use it. All they ever use is the cooking station. You could literally just have that and it would function just fine. Like you don't need anything else in here. It's just fun when you're building it to like add in some more decor and like make it seem like people actually live and work in here. I guess it doesn't really seem like anybody works in here because it's not very realistic at all, but it's okay. It's a Sims build. It's a Sims build that has a magic scarecrow. So does the kitchen need to be perfectly accurate? No, it's fine. Now in the very back of the building, I was kind of struggling to figure out where I wanted to put the stairs because I really didn't want the stairs to be like a main feature of the interior. One, because the downstairs where the kitchen and dining is so small, but also I didn't really want the upstairs to be like a thing that your Sims went to. It wasn't really supposed to be accessible to the public. So instead I put a staircase like kind of around the back, which I think makes sense for a build like this. I feel like it's kind of realistic to have like a back staircase, whether it's an apartment or just like a storage room, it really makes sense to have it kind of around the back there. And then on the inside, I just put like some storage. There's a desk, and I made sure to also include a woohoo closet. That was my number one priority, was that I wanted to make sure there was a place for my Sims to woohoo here, which sounds really bad, okay? I started out trying to make it into an apartment and it just wasn't working. Like the floor plan was weird and we had that door from downstairs clipping, and I got frustrated, so I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just gonna make it into a storage room and I'm going to have a woohoo closet. And actually, when I was building this, I discovered that the woohoo closets don't work like how they used to. I shouldn't call it a woohoo closet because it's just like a closet from Get Together. But before, you used to be able to place the closet in the wall. Like the thing snaps like a door to the wall basically. So you could like hide it in a corner or something and it would function in the wall. And it does still function in the wall. Like your Sims can go in there, they can cry in there, they can change in there. But if you try to woohoo when it's snapped to the wall, it doesn't work. I don't really understand why. Like I'm not sure when it stopped working snapped to the wall or like if they changed something, but I really tried to do it and I play tested it with like so many Sims. It didn't work. So I had to take it out of the wall and just leave it sat there. And I think it's okay. Like it doesn't really matter that much. It's not supposed to be like a beautiful room. It's a storage room, right? I guess I just thought it was kind of interesting because I haven't noticed that glitch before. Although I guess I don't really put closets in my Sims builds that much. I would if we had more variants of them, but we just have a couple options and I don't love how either of them look. So I kind of just tend to not use them very much until, you know, today when I discovered that they're broken, but it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a woohoo closet and it does work. I made sure that it functions on this build, so don't worry. If you visit here, you can pick a pumpkin, you can buy some soup, and you can woohoo in the closet. But that is pretty much the build done. So I want to pop into the game and show you a real finished tour of the finished product, especially because I lost that terrain paint footage. I want you to see like all of the yard and all of that dirt that I layered together. So I placed this lot up here on this 30 by 30 lot, kind of in the back of the cats and dogs world. It's right across the street from Brent and Bran, if you know where those Sims live. I feel like Brindleton Bay just looks so beautiful in the fall, so it was like the obvious choice for this building. And this is what the place looks like, although no, this is in the summertime, so wait. I'll quickly cheat it to make it fall so we can see the trees. See, that just looks so much better with the red. That's what we wanted. So you can see that around the outside, I placed like pumpkins and plants everywhere. I literally put pumpkins like around pretty much every corner on the exterior of this build. Pumpkins and mushrooms were kind of the theme with this one. I even have these pumpkins like by the picnic tables. I really put them everywhere. I kind of went a bit overboard. This is that tractor that I was talking about. I figured it could be kind of a cute photo op. You could have your Sim like, no! Rain? No, don't do that. Go away. It's cloudy now. This is not the vibes. Okay, there we go. It's fixed. You could like stand here, take a screenshot. Your Sim can walk around this path, which by the way, it took me way too long, but you can walk around the path. It kind of like winds around the lot. There's a little swing set back here. We have these cool lights like kind of framing the middle. And then way back in the back is the actual pumpkin patch. I've got Patchy and like some jack-o'-lanterns guarding it. But when you walk in, you can actually come. No, wait, it changed my crops. I had done it like all custom with the crop healed. Okay, well, you saw in the video, it looked way better. The gallery version sucks, but pumpkin patch is back here. You can like come harvest one or whatever. I also spent like kind of an embarrassingly long time trying to get this sign to go onto this sign. They're not actually attached to each other, but I like, you know, alt placed it and stuff so it would look like I had a cool pumpkin sign. This is from Seasons. I kind of forgot this thing existed, but this decal has some really cute swatches on it. I also put a little pumpkin carving station back here in the back. This one has terrible swatches, so it doesn't really match, but if you wanted to come here and like carve a pumpkin, you can. Here on the patio, you can check in and like get your table right here by the stairs. And I've placed a few tables with like some lanterns and stuff kind of on this patio. And then when you come inside, we've got like 3 more tables and also like some cute decor and stuff. Again, really not a huge space, not a ton of tables. To the left, we've got a nice bathroom. Honestly, kind of big compared to the size of the lot, but it looks nice in here. And then back here we have the kitchen. I put like some clutter around and stuff. And then out here from the back, you can access like the stairs and the trash can over here on the side. And then upstairs, it really is just like a small storage room. I've got like a desk, there's a coat rack and a bookshelf. I wanted to put a computer, but I was scared the Sims would use it autonomously, so I deleted it. And then in here is that woohoo closet, which again, does function. There's no walls in it, so it works. It's just when you place the wall like this that it doesn't, which is weird because it snaps to the walls. Like it places there, but whatever. I don't know, no game. Anyway, I also picked outfits for all of the employees. I tried to use a lot of like cute cottage living stuff in like very autumnal colors. I really, really like how they look. And I made an entire custom menu of like very autumnal food. There's a lot of like hot drinks, hot chocolate, sparkling apple juice, stuff like that. We got a bunch of soup and bread on the menu. We've got like pumpkin stew and vegetable chili and like turkey dinner on the main menu. For dessert, we have just a very large variety of pies and I guess also carrot cake. I really have like so much fun making the custom menus for these restaurants. I think it is like so cool to just pick what they're gonna sell. That's half the fun when it comes to building the restaurant as far as I'm concerned. But overall, I am really happy with this build. Aside from the game messing up my pumpkin patch, that's really sad. I could cry about that. And I spent a really long time working on this, so I hope that you like it too. It's on the gallery. It's called Patchy's Pumpkin Patch if you want to go download it. And I think on that note, I'm gonna end this video right here. Happy almost December. I already have a snowy build recorded and ready to upload. Like I said, this is the last fall video you were getting from me until next year. I am ready for the cold. I understand that my perspective here is a bit twisted because of the whole Florida thing, but I am ready for Florida cold, okay? And if you like Sims builds and Sims videos, I make them every day here on YouTube, so feel free to subscribe, and I'm gonna catch you all tomorrow, okay? Bye, everybody. Honestly, if you knew how much time I spent placing pumpkins on this lot, you would laugh at me. Maybe it's a good thing that footage is gone, because if you could see it, you really would laugh.